section, which is Quirky Choreography, in which a young woman finds her identity as a movement artist. I'm going to read you my artist statement. I describe myself as a quirky, ballet-based movement artist who creates work mainly for the online platforms. I admire the famous storybook ballets, and I enjoy taking that type of choreography and giving it my own Kylie flavor. I am a lover of the quirky pretty. You will see the use of turnout, codified arms and feet, and traditional ballet, modern, and jazz movements, pirouettes, leaps, port de bras within my work. Those more traditional elements are accented with quirky flicks of the fingers, flexing of the feet, and inward rotation of the legs mixed in throughout. I also take inspiration from music, especially classically inspired songs, usually performed by a small orchestra. My choreography takes cues from whatever sound I am moving to, but my type of art is also like a silent movie. I have to tell a story using mainly my body, and I tend to do that in a slightly silly manner. The end results are beautiful, interesting, and sometimes odd. I am a storyteller. I enjoy creating work that has a distinct storyline or idea behind it. Incorporating a storyline, an inspiration, or a narrative results in the creation of better art. I need to have a concrete idea regardless of the size of the idea in order to begin creating. When the art has a clear idea and structure behind it, the art becomes relatable to a broader audience. While my art is personal, I always hope to reach people who have shared similar experiences. My work is created to be primarily showcased online instead of in a traditional theater setting. While I do not have a live audience, my work has the potential to reach an even larger audience all around the world. I believe that is another reason why I strive to have a concrete idea behind my work, as I feel relatable work can be enjoyed more. Above all, I strive to create positive experiences for both myself and my audience. I'm a dance educator and proud of it. So, dance is all fun and games when you first start taking classes. When you get older, dance either becomes a hobby or it becomes the beginnings of training for a professional career. Now, the decision to follow a professional career path does not always mean that you will become a prima ballerina. Rather, you may end up as the teacher who trained and nurtured the techniques of that prima ballerina. One thing I noticed growing up was that if you chose to be a dance teacher, people were kind of like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you want to perform? Why don't you go professional? Why would you want to teach? It always had a very negative idea around it for some reason. Although many college dance majors teach while in school, they do not think much about those on-the-side jobs while they're working towards becoming a professional. When I was in school, I balanced teaching 10 classes a week and 5 hours of company rehearsal each weekday. I was assured that that job was temporary. I was just waiting for the moment our company would get our big break. I would finally receive a steady paycheck with benefits and be able to quit my teaching jobs. Yeah, right. I would proudly be able to say that I was a working professional dancer. After I was let go from that job, my focus as a dance teacher shifted from the paycheck to my students. I began to pay an immense amount of attention to each and every one of them, whether I saw professional talent in them or not. I learned how to teach tiny children, middle school children, high school teens, adults, special needs kids, and non-dancers. The dance educator in me began to take over more. I had one experience. Can you hear that? Mm-hmm. This was about 2 years ago. know, but. That video was inspired. I was in a writing group at the time. It was inevitable. You had to write, and that very moment happened like the day after I got the prompt. So I was like, it means something. For the longest time, I always said that dance was my one passion. I did not consider any other aspects of the dance world because performing dance was the most important to me. Now, I consider multiple aspects to be my passions. Performing, choreographing, teaching, writing, and reading, etc. I'm able to share my talents and happiness with others. I also realized the need to continue teaching the teacher, which led to my pursuit of Masters in Fine Arts. These are just a few of the places that I've worked for that have really inspired me to keep going as a teacher. Reach Out and Dance, it's a program, they're still going in Ohio. They go into public schools for free, and they teach the 5th graders all singing and dancing, and at the end we have a huge big show, and it was absolutely wonderful because these kids just want to learn. That's all they want to do. Diana Durkin Dance Studio, that was one of the first teaching jobs I had. I taught a Broadway style class, which was nice. The middle is Weathervane Playhouse. I consider that my home theater. It's in Ohio. I did a few shows there, and I assistant choreographed Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and The Music Man, which won Best Musical in our version of the Tonys. It's called The Chanticleer. And of course, CSU Dance Conservatory and Columbus Ballet. So. This is my teaching philosophy. If you ever get a job, you're going to have to write one of these. Need it.
I'm going to steal Miss Kylie.
So, my teaching philosophy is, I am in love with dance and always have been. I enjoy taking class, performing, and choreographing. I owe a large part of my love for dance to the wonderful teachers I had growing up. Now that I am a dance teacher, I wish to leave a similar lasting impact on my own students. This is actually a quote from Lisa. I forgot about it. I have been told that when students love going to dance class, 90% of that is because of their teacher. I hope to be that 90% for my students. One of my main goals as a teacher is to instill proper technique in my students. Students of every age not only need a structured environment to thrive, they also need proper technique instilled early on so that it becomes second nature. This is especially important when it comes to core strength. Every movement performed in dance either originates from the core or is supported by it. Therefore, I place an intense focus on that area, as you know, because I make you do abs in my acting class. My other main goal is to make sure my students are enjoying the entire dance experience. My classes, while structured, are also engaging and entertaining. My students often smile during class, leave in great moods, and sometimes give me hugs goodbye. I want to be respected as a teacher. I am not a friend, nor an enemy to my students. I achieve to maintain the perfect balance of being fun and firm. I hope for my students to walk away from class feeling as though they have accomplished something special. Whether that be finally nailing a step that I've been giving them trouble, learning to count music properly, or feeling that they played the best fairy that day. I want to be part of the reason that they feel great. Teaching is a give and take relationship. I provide the skill and technique and receive happiness and improvement from my students as a reward. So, once I decided that I was really going to get more into the education side of things, I started looking up different types of curriculums, and I found one during my second semester called Scripting the Body, which incorporates writing and dancing. And the woman who started it, its name is Ariane McBean. She lives in LA right now, I think. And I was just really fascinated because even when I'm choreographing, I have to write down every single bit and every single count and every single pattern because it helps me. And her stuff has a lot to do with that. So I started using some of her things in my classes and choreographing. That was my old room in Ohio. One of these, bottom right-hand corner, it's called Observations. And you had to sit in a room, you had your students in a room, and they had to find one object in the room and just look at it for like 10 minutes. And then they had to do a free write on what that made them feel. And then they did a dance based off of it. It was really interesting. So I experimented with that. I've implemented a lot of Ariane's stuff into my work, and I really appreciate that she has that curriculum out there because it's a little bit more for a type A personality, which I am. And at that time, one of my professors, it turned out that he was actually friends with Ariane, so I got to talk to her on the phone. It was really cool. Another thing that I have learned during this whole process is that I have to adapt sometimes. So this happened during my 4th semester, and it kind of explains itself. Get the picture? Okay. So, stop. No, stop. Sorry, hold on. So, let me get back to the
No, we can distract the people on the thing. Sorry.
I'll show you just the ending of that, what it ended up being. Then silence it over.
Another day.
Someone walked in on me. There we go. Ta-da. That was real fun. My doctor told me that it was like a fall injury. I was like, how to get that? He was like, your dancer, you're jumping all the time. So, but yeah, basically I was not allowed to do anything. It was horrible. But it healed, so.
Sorry, there are some problems with the computer.
It came up to it. Okay, so been one of my biggest inspirations during this whole spiel, Twyla Tharp. That's one of her quotes. Before you can think out of the box, you have to start with the box.
That's amazing.
Okay, so I think that anyone who has been practicing any form of art for a long time has gotten into a schlump, which is when you are stuck and you just kind of like writer's block, basically, but in every spectrum. So one of my biggest schlumps happened while I was in the middle of my MFAIA studies, and it was at a really important part of my studies, which was not good. So at the suggestion of my advisor at the time, Pete Hawking, I turned to the work of Twyla Tharp for inspiration. So what really got me about Tharp stuff is that she's a chameleon. She does everything and anything. So she's choreographed a really cool musical called Moving Out. It's all to Billy Joel music, and I love it. And she was, when I first heard about her, she was mentioned briefly in the postmodern section of my Dance in the 20th Century course in college, but that was it. There didn't know anything about that. And she was described as a quirky crossover ballet choreographer. Tharp's work, especially her book, The Creative Habit, changed both my personal and professional life. That became like my Bible almost. Discoup, hope I'm saying that right, originally performed by the Joffrey Ballet, is considered to be the first crossover ballet. And crossover ballet is considered, has all the proper technique of ballet, but also has other influences thrown in there. So she was considered the first choreographer to do that. I also admire, like I said, her range as an artist. She has created ballet-based pieces such as Push Comes to Shove, starring the great Mikhail Baryshnikov. It is a phenomenal piece. She created jazz-inspired choreography for an entire Broadway musical, Moving Out, and she's created pieces such as In the Upper Room, which I personally can see flecks of Paul Taylor's technique sprinkled in. I view Tharp as a role model. She makes it apparent in her book that if you wish to create, you just need to start. Tharp herself once reached a point when the only way for her to begin was to stomp her foot and go begin, and suddenly she started choreographing. So she encourages you to, no matter what, just find a way to get into movement, no matter how silly it seems. And if it works, then it works. She also takes no issue with dancers and choreographers copying other artists, as long as those artists are given proper credit. She feels that you should work with material that allows you to feel comfortable and creative. In some ways, I do believe that I personally have copied some of her aesthetics, as I currently identify as a quirky choreography. The one word that always comes to mind when you ask someone about Twyla Tharp is that she's quirky. That's always what comes up. However, my style evolved into Kylie quirks, which I see as a tribute to Tharp now. Another thing that heavily inspired me, but not originally, I wrote an essay early in my graduate studies discussing another Arian McBean article, which was called Site-Specific Dance, Promoting Social Awareness in Choreography. I questioned McBean's thoughts and opinions on As she proclaimed that in her perfect world, all dance would be site-specific. She also felt it was important to do an immense amount of research, stating, every dance would acknowledge the history, architecture, politics, and social implications that the space and its inhabitants lead to a dance. At the time, I was not as familiar with topics of site-specific dance, and I wrote, while I believe this article would be inspiring to those who love site-specific dance, to those who do not, like me, apparent flaws can be found with McBean's writing. Personally, I think it's possible to create a site-specific work without thinking about the history, architecture, politics, and social implications to the site. If I go into my boyfriend's backyard, create dance in his garden, and film it, that is site-specific, isn't it? I would be able to do that without thinking of the history, etc. So that I actually did. This was before we were living together and I was visiting. I just randomly danced in his backyard and I filmed it, and I was like, that's site-specific, isn't it? I'm on a site that is not traditional. So that's site specific. I was trying to prove a point. Stupid. So, shortly after writing that essay, I did create a video of improvised dance inspired by my thoughts. The use of location was based on this, what I had at the time. It was before I had a job here, so I didn't have a studio. And it was based on that rather than choice after conducting research. I was only using my knowledge of McBean's opinions on site-specific work at the time, so it did not seem that my use of this non-traditional location could be characterized as site-specific art. That is a tongue twister. I've noticed that. I hadn't researched the history of the site, and I wasn't initially inspired by the site. I had danced out of boredom, and I was limited to only the space available. One of my goals upon entering grad school was to find my identity. And I kept finding myself just dancing around the house. That's something I've always done since I was younger, especially in the kitchen. I always dance in the kitchen because the floor always seems to be good for me. I don't know why. And I shortly realized that I'm practicing site-specific work, even though I didn't want to. So I was encouraged by one of my professor's advisors to look more into the history of site-specific work. And I found that it doesn't always have to be about the history. It can sometimes be personal. Like you can have a storyline related to it. You can, as long as you have like a narrative that makes you feel good, then it can be site-specific. That's fine. So some of the stuff that I looked into when I was looking at site-specific work, there's this video, I think this is Blue Mount Inc. It's called Bedford Subway, and this woman, she has very minimal movement in a very public space. And there's a bunch of people going on around her, but she's just standing there and nobody seemed to notice her. That was cool. I also looked into Robert Irwin, who is, he does more sculptural type stuff, but he still is a site-specific artist because he's never in like a studio or a lot or some place. He tries to choose separate places. And then Stephen Kopelitz, he is mainly a site-specific choreographer. He does huge scale works. He did something in an old train station one time. They were up in the lights. It was phenomenal. And then Coleman and Lamo Company. This is when I draw the line. This company does a lot. They dive into site-specific work. They created a whole piece based off of construction of a new area, and they had like dancers rolling around in the mud out there. At stuff like that bothers me, but I can appreciate like you getting that into your work. So you had great pictures like that. And at one point it started like downpouring rain. I can still appreciate it though. So all my research on site-specific work led me to what I consider my biggest project, the Quirky Habitat series. So the Quirky Habitat series, it was originally inspired by this video, which I'm going to play in a second. What the Quirky Habitat series is about is that I choose a room in my house and I choose a storyline behind it. And I dance in that room based off of that storyline. So I have a connection to the site, so it's site-specific. And I do it in my own sort of silly manner. I've been told that I have a very interesting sense of humor. Since I do choreograph a lot for online work, I'm prepared for what we call trolls and haters, and I've gotten those, and I don't care because, like I said, I'm different, and I like what I do. So, this is a piece called I'm So Tired, and it is based off of, I have really bad stress-induced insomnia. So the first bit.
How many photos do you have?
I think it depends on the video. Because overall I have like 60 subscribers, which is not much, but I also have a blog, and then the views if you put the proper tags in, then you can get people watching it. So this is I'm So Tired. The Beatles, in case you can hear it. after that, things got a little bit more professional. This is the second video in the series. It's called Little Distractions. Growing up, I was homeschooled, as I mentioned. My mom had a heck of a time trying to get me to do my schoolwork, especially my math, because while I am what I consider a type A personality, I like to get things done, I like to be very organized, I also have a huge imagination, and my mind can just wander off to Lord knows where. So what I've realized is that whenever I have to do something, like clean a room or get some homework done, I need to have something else going on in the background. I need to play music, I need to get up and take stretch breaks, and I get it done. It might take longer than normal people, but I get it done. So this piece was inspired by that, and the fact that ever since I moved in with my poor boyfriend, I trashed the bathroom in our hallway, and he kept going like, you need to clean it up. It's got to be you because you're the one that made the mess with all your little girly things. So I decided to clean the room, but make it part of my project as well. So this shows how I can get distracted, but how I have something to do. I'm gross, I'm very sorry. Yeah, see, I told you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the movement, actually a good portion of the movement was improv because I felt that it would be more organic. Trash can was full. Super full. And I also wanted to throw in a little bit of odd dancer movement because my family constantly makes fun of me because even if I'm just sitting around, I sit like this with my toes pointed. So when I'm cleaning, I still do that. So I figured I'd throw that in. Yeah, I told you. This was one of my dance breaks that I definitely need. This is where I love my choreography. So the room got clean, but it took like a good hour and a half. Yep, lip balm.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Caitlin. And then the current, most recent piece in the series is called Hangry, which is hungry plus angry. I am borderline hypoglycemic, which means that when my blood sugar gets super low, it can affect different people different ways. You can get tired, or you can get really hyper. When it hits me, I turn into one of the meanest people you will ever meet. So when I was creating this piece, I obviously choreographed it in my kitchen, but I also thought of, I went back to my insecurities with my body and how I feel like I constantly need to snack, but then I worry about what's going to happen when I'm bigger, and I don't want that to happen. So here's just a little
Cookie.
exactly.
Mucho gusta.
It's basically like my inner demons with food, I guess.
Eat the cookie already.
I already had 2 cookies that day. I made the healthier choice.
Boo-hoo!
So, oddly enough, that's one of my favorite ones that I did in the series. That got a lot of hate when I put it on YouTube. Because they just don't understand it. So, in order for people to understand it, I would have to type out like the entire essay that I wrote along with it to go with it. But people were like, what the heck? And going off, I'm like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. I don't care. It's still one of my favorites.
It's just cookies.
So, epilogue. Beyond my telescope, in which a quirky Corby plans her future endeavors. Lately, one of my biggest inspirations has been Bill T. Jones. If you do not know who he is, I would suggest looking up every single thing that he has done. He is phenomenal. So, one of his quotes, living and dying is not the big issue. The big issue is what you're going to do with your time while you are here. And what really got me onto Bill T. Jones, I've always had this thing about fear. For the longest time, I always feared what people would think of me and what my choreography would be like. I'm finally over that, partially thanks to him. One of my biggest inspirations from Jones is he created a piece called Still Here, and it was either over 2 years or 3 years. He did a series of workshops all throughout the United States, and he took people who were living with a terminal disease or were close to living with a terminal disease. So cancer patients, cystic fibrosis, AIDS. And he went in and worked with them, and non-dancers. And he would randomly go, okay, do a joy dance. Just do a joy dance, go ahead. And they would do that, and he filmed them. Or he would have them write out a map of their life just on one sheet of paper. And then he would have one person walk the entire class through their life and their map. It's all really fascinating. There's an entire documentary on it called Still Here, and I think it's with Guilty Lawyers. PBS did it. It's online. You can view it for free if you search it. It's great. So he took all of those workshops, all of that work, and he took his company and did an entire piece based off of it. So all the movement was inspired from pedestrian movement, which I love. And his company itself is full of huge variety. There's male and female, and really, really large and really thin. There's this like one teeny little girl and one huge tall guy. And it was called A Major and Often Startling New Mixed Media Piece, a singularly American work. For the longest time, I was considering doing something close to that. My boyfriend is a disabled veteran. He is considered 90% disabled. Probably will get the next 10% within the next few years. So I would like to do sometime in the future. It's not set in stone, but I would like to do a piece interviewing veterans and their experiences, something based off of that. So Jones's personal connection to the piece, his partner died of complications with HIV, Arnie Zane. That's partially who the company was based off of. And you can see the personal connection with that. When he was in the workshops, there were some moments that he was just very, very emotional, and it's very sensitive and heart-wrenching, and I love it. So I aspire to be as sensitive of a choreographer as he is someday. Hello, let's go. We're not gonna go. Along with the fear, I looked into a book by psychologist Rollo May, and he writes a lot about creative courage, which I felt related to me. I'll just read that little quote. He says, "But in our appreciation of the creative work, let us say a Mozart quintet, we also are performing a creative art. When we engage a painting, which we have to do, especially with modern art, if we are authentically to see it, we are experiencing some new moment of sensibility. Some new vision is triggered in by us, by our contact with the painting. Something unique is born in us. That is why our appreciation of music or painting or other works of creative person is also a creative act on our part. The idea that my art can have such a lasting impact on an audience is unbelievable to me. So wouldn't collaborating more with my audiences lead to an even better feeling of satisfaction between myself and my collaborator? I do believe so." Through his workshops, Jones created a critically acclaimed piece capturing multiple people's stories. In the future, could I do the same? Of course. There's the end. There we go. Finishing up, but not really. Just going to read you the last segment here. "I want to somehow leave an impression on this world. This portfolio is a way for me to do just that. It is a personal yet public. It took months of work to compile, and I'm quite proud of it, but it is also a way for me to keep my artistic practice alive as I continue to add to it over the years. Scrapbookers don't simply make one scrapbook in their lifetime. There are far too many interesting things in the world to quip about. So whether another scrapbook is compiled, a play is written, or a concert is choreographed, my adventure is only just beginning." And I'm really excited. There's just some pictures of me. Yep. Thank you.
Go, Miss Kylie. I mean, it's gonna be on YouTube. I'm just wondering.
I'm either gonna do YouTube or something else.